May 14th, 2024. The Dungeons & Dragons chapter was on the horizon and giving us the most based killer in the game with absolutely no bias or opposing opinions saying otherwise. Definitely not. Behavior is showcasing the teaser for the year's Twisted Masquerade event in their anniversary stream, and then, out of the blue, they revealed this little teaser for the chapter after the event. Despite being less of a horror game and more of a gothic-styled adventure game with horror elements in it, Castlevania was a massive deal to Dead by Daylight given how much of a following it has. This is especially reinforced by the fact that it still remains incredibly popular despite not having a new game made in around a decade now. Silent Hill fans can relate to this, as well as the critically acclaimed Netflix series of the same name. Due to this following, it was extremely important for Behavior to not mess this chapter up. And I can confidently say that looking back at the 8-month time frame this chapter has been out, God, I feel old. This chapter delivered and then some. What makes this chapter so great? Let's not waste any more time. Let's go talk about what I believe is one of the best licensed chapters in DVD history, the Castlevania chapter. Starting us off, the first set of content the Castlevania chapter gave us was the survivor, Trevor Belmont. Many people were hoping that we were going to be having Simon Belmont since, to my very limited Castlevania knowledge, he is the most popular of the Belmonts, so much so that he made it into Smash Bros. As the game's Castlevania representative. But looking back at it now, I can see the vision for Trevor as well. Plus Simon ended up being a skin anyway, so we'll take what we can get. Going into his lore for a second, Trevor was an outcast in the town of Wallachia due to his association by blood to the Belmont clan, a family name that possessed great strength and supernatural powers, and one that the citizens of the 1476 Romanian countryside shunned and feared, very likely due to fearing witchcraft practices. Despite this, he stepped up to defeat Dracula when he and his hellish minions swept across the land and tried to eradicate humanity due to the death of his wife Lisa. Honestly, reasonable crash out. As for when the entity takes him, he gets taken sometime after Dracula's defeat when he was just minding his own business and going to investigate some disappearances in a nearby village, when he himself ended up joining that statistic via a black fog arriving to rob him of his family's signature whip, the Vampire Killer, and taking him away to the realm. Why did I bring up his lore just now? Because if we power scale Trevor compared to the rest of the game's cast, Trevor is immensely powerful, and since he could kill Dracula, an overwhelmingly powerful vampire with immortality, anger issues, and a multitude of powers, he could very easily take on some of the stronger killers in the game if we ignore game limitations and gave him Vampire Killer back. Most notably, Trevor is another survivor that comes with in-game voice lines similar to Lara Croft, Nicolas Cage, and the upcoming survivor Aurelia Rose. In terms of skins, Trevor comes with a skin referencing Simon and Leon Belmont. Soma Cruz and his Deep Rift variant were obtainable back in the Castlevania Rift a while back, and Alucard, the survivor you see me play in 90% of my survivor B-roll footage and all my videos, is in this selection as well. In terms of perks, Trevor has some pretty sweet ones. Eyes of Belmont is one of my favorite survivor perks, and what it does is it allows you to see the killer every time a generator pops for 3 seconds and buffs other aura reading perks for 2 seconds. Essentially, this is Lethal Pursuer for survivors, and I already like Lethal, so I'm gonna like this perk as well. Pairs well with other aura perks for reasons I should not have to explain. Moment of Glory is definitely his worst one, allowing you to open a rummage chest twice to receive the broken status for 30 seconds, and you become healthy once it ends. This perk sounds decent on paper, but it's faster to just let someone else heal you. Plus, chests themselves are pretty shit as a mechanic, which is why the majority of chest perks don't get seen much. Finally, Exaltation allows your item to upgrade itself a tier and recharge itself by 25% when you stun the killer. This can combo with Smash Hit for a pallet stun setup, but the main reason this perk is nice outside of buffing medkits and flashlights if you brought the weaker ones, is because if you escape with the upgraded item, you get to keep it. This is super nice for beginner players or broke boys like me who stick to buying cheap items from the blood web in order to progress it faster, but otherwise there's not really much of a point in using this perk if you don't care about stockpiling the higher tier items. Overall, there's not a whole lot to talk about with Trevor, but that isn't because he isn't interesting, it's more just because survivors in general are all just skins of each other and don't really have anything unique to offer to themselves in terms of gameplay. However, this can't be any further from the truth with the other piece of content. The man, the myth, the wine glass breaking legend, Vlad Dracula Tepish. On the killer side of things, the chapter added Dracula to the killer roster, and by all accounts, he is a very strong killer currently, considered top 10 at a minimum by a lot of people. This is due to Dracula being a jack of all trades kind of killer, and while he is a master of none, he can feel pretty close to being a master of all sometimes since he has just about everything you could possibly want as a killer. His default form, the vampire, allows him to shoot a pillar of fire similarly to Pyramid Head that can hit over pallets, windows, and small to medium obstacles, giving him great anti-loop once you get the precision and timing of the attack down. He can transform into another form, the wolf form, that allows him to track survivors nearby with scent orbs, and collecting these grants him a temporary haste boost and helps recharge the wolf's power faster. Speaking of, the wolf's power is a double pounce attack that isn't stopped or cancelled by collision. The wolf's main downside is being unable to back up very well, which makes him have to brute force loops or turn into the vampire for better movement. The wolf's power can also be used to close distance between Dracula and a survivor, but this can also be done with Dracula's last form, the Bat form. Bat form allows for much greater movement speed, the ability to completely ignore dropped pallets and windows by flying over them, and the ability to quickly travel to said resources within range anywhere on the map. This is especially nice on maps with multiple floors since you can traverse them easily, or you just hook someone in basement since you can easily just teleport right out. The main downside to Bat form is that you become loud as hell and lose the ability to track survivors physically while they can still see you, meaning you have to rely on sound, grass movement, or scratch marks to help figure out if someone's close. And survivors can make it harder by playing stealthily. You also cannot attack as the Bat form, so if you use it to catch up to someone quickly and chase, or you just happen to run into someone, you are forced to pick a different form in order to deal damage to them. All three of these forms combined in the hands of someone that knows what they're doing can make Dracula a very scary killer to face, and it's not really much of a surprise he tends to rank highly on many people's tier lists. In terms of lore, Dracula was once a regular guy who traded his immortal soul for eternal life, effectively transforming him into a vampire, and a damn strong one at that. Sometime after that, he met and married Lisa, had Alucard with her, and all was good. Until Lisa got burned at the stake and Dracula responded by having a worse crash out than your average Dead by Daylight endgame chat. Literally all Trevor could say in response upon finding out why Dracula's on the warpath against humanity is, damn. And I don't blame him either, we suck. Anyways, he ends up getting rocked by the Belmont clan and Alucard repeatedly until the entity scoops him up at the end of the Battle of 1999, where he would have otherwise been killed for good. As for what he thinks of the realm,
this is vampire heaven.
Yeah, he absolutely loves it here. He's also extremely likely to be the strongest killer in the realm outside of Vecna, who doesn't have any dominion over anyone else and the entity because the entity had to actively nerf him upon entry in order to make his otherwise godlike lich fair and balanced for the trials. Meanwhile, Dracula seems to be playing by the rules on his own volition since he is just as absurd in power level, but he lacks the mark himself. Hell, in an alternate universe, I can see Dracula managing to make the entity work for him instead of the other way around, given how he already commands a ton of Eldritch Horrors and Hellspawn to begin with. Perk-wise, Dracula's perks are interesting, but nothing special on their own. Hex Wretched Fate is fairly decent as a slowdown hex on obsession builds, but other than that, I don't really feel positively or negatively on it. It just kind of exists. A lot of perks fall into that category in all honesty. Human Greed's basically a mini Weave attunement in my opinion, but for closed chests. This perk pairs well with other perks and offerings that increase chest spawns, and funnily enough, it completely outdoes Territorial Imperative's entire existence as a basement perk for whatever that's worth, since one chest is guaranteed to be in the basement and you get to use it more elsewhere. Overall, it's alright, but it's inconsistent due to relying on chest spawns. Finally, Dominance is his best perk in my opinion, and it blocks totems and chests the first times they're interacted with for 16 seconds and are highlighted in white for the killer to see. This is very good for some extra totem defense, but unfortunately it's mostly outdone and not seen very much due to Undying's existence and Pentimento just being Pentimento. Ultimately, Dracula's perks fit his theming, but in practice they're usually not worth using without making a build around them, or you want to try some gimmicky stuff, which I can totally respect. In terms of skins, Dracula has two relatively decent ones, but the big one here is his True Form cosmetic that was released in the Castlevania Rift. This thing looks cool as fuck, and I don't care if it's technically pay to lose because of the tails. I'm running it anyway. Also, this Mori right here? Yeah, this isn't the Mori, this is a Mortal Kombat fatality. Now that we've yapped about Dracula for long enough, let's talk about some other stuff relating to this chapter that I think really contributed to its success and its attention to detail. Starting us off with probably the least noteworthy thing here, Behavior went out of their way to make a Castlevania theme for the rerun of the Lights Out modifier, utilizing new candelabras to help provide some light and allows the survivor to see what their team are doing, at the cost of basically making yourself a beacon for the killer. Thanks to that downside, they weren't really utilized all that much, and since Lights Out is more of a tamer mode than some other ones like Chaos Shuffle and 2v8, the mode ended up not being very popular by comparison, even with the Castlevania elements and the sweet tome stuff they added for it. There wasn't a map that came with this chapter, but Behavior added a detail as Dracula that whenever he loads into a match, his castle will appear in the background of every single map with bats swarming around it. This is a really cool Easter egg since Dracula's castle is capable of teleporting around wherever he pleases, so it's almost like the entity just let him bring his house into the realm and Dracula just parks it outside the trial grounds every match. This Easter egg appears in literally every single map with the exception of the licensed maps, so you're not going to see it on Nostromo Wreckage, Midwich, Batum, etc. Although, interesting and weirdly enough, Forgotten Ruins, the Dungeons & Dragons map, is exempt from this for whatever reason. The castle also makes an appearance in the Castlevania menu lobby back when Castlevania first released, and in my opinion, this one was one of the best lobbies, and it really makes me wish we could select our lobby background. Like, this shit's currently my desktop wallpaper, it goes that hard for me. This chapter also had a dedicated rift that gave us a lot of high quality skins like Death Nurse, Medieval Guard Unknown, and the aforementioned Soma Cruz and True Form Dracula skins, to name a few. Finally, before I wrap this up, can we give the composers a round of applause for the score of this chapter? I've played both Trevor and Dracula's menu themes while I was discussing both of them respectively, but just take a listen to Dracula's Terror Radius and Chase themes. I don't know if rent was due at Behavior HQ that week or what, but the composers went so hard on all the music for this chapter. If it wasn't for the DBD motif being part of it, you could legitimately convince me that this was from a completely different game. It really puts into perspective just how much DBD has grown from a small indie game that even Behavior was unsure would do well to the asymmetrical titan that it has become over the years. Dead by Daylight's Castlevania chapter was a love letter to the franchise that included a ton of high quality content, giving us a very cool survivor with one of the best skins in the game in Alucard, Dracula being, at minimum, a high tier killer that's very fun to play as once you get his complexities down, some banger music, and a whole lot of other neat things and tiny details that just makes this chapter very enjoyable. The period of time this chapter released was some of the most fun I've had playing DBD as a whole, and I'm really hoping someday we can customize our lobby background so I can rock that Castlevania one 24/7. The menu theme just goes that hard. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like the video, subscribe for more DBD content, and check out the playlist in the description if you want to see more. Let me know in the comments what you all thought of the Castlevania chapter when it was released. And with that in mind, cheers!